There is a number that keeps showing up in the history of computing, and it always arrives with the same announcement. We are approaching the wall past which physics will not allow us to go, the wall where electrons leak and heat overwhelms, and the atomic structure of matter itself becomes an obstacle. For decades, engineers have been hearing this prophecy, and for decades, they have been ignoring it. Not through recklessness, but through ingenuity, so patient and so disciplined that it barely makes the news until suddenly the impossible becomes a product announcement. The number this time is 1 nanometer. To understand why that number matters, you have to sit with it for a moment. A nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. A human hair is roughly 80,000 nanometers wide. A strand of DNA is about 2 nanometers in diameter. The silicon-silicon bond, the fundamental atomic spacing in the material that has powered every chip since the 1960s, is about 0.235 nanometers. When engineers talk about a 1 nanometer transistor node, they are not describing something comfortably larger than atoms. They are describing something that brushes against the atomic scale so closely that a transistor's active channel might contain only a handful of silicon atoms across its width. At that scale, classical physics stops being a reliable guide. Quantum mechanics steps in. Electrons no longer flow politely from source to drain like water through a pipe. They tunnel. They appear on the wrong side of a barrier without technically passing through it. The transistor, which is fundamentally a gate that opens and closes to represent a 1 or a 0, starts leaking current even when it's supposed to be closed. And leakage is not merely an efficiency problem, it's a fidelity problem. A computer that cannot reliably distinguish on from off is, at its core, a computer that cannot think. This is the argument that physicists have been making, in various forms, since the 1990s. Gordon Moore himself, who famously observed in 1965 that the number of transistors on a chip tended to double roughly every 2 years, acknowledged that this trend could not last forever. Physics eventually would be the ceiling. By most projections made in the early 2000s, we should have hit that ceiling around 2020. Transistor dimensions would plateau somewhere around 5 to 7 nanometers, and that would be, more or less, the end of classical miniaturization. What has happened instead is one of the more quietly extraordinary stories in the history of materials science. The breakthrough didn't come from pushing silicon further. It came from asking whether silicon needed to be there at all. In 2011, a group of researchers began publishing work on a class of compounds called transition metal dechalcogenides, a term that sounds deliberately designed to end casual conversation, but refers, essentially, to materials formed by pairing a transition metal with a chalcogen. One of the most studied of these is molybdenum disulfide, written MOS2, and its peculiar virtue is structural. Unlike silicon, which forms a three-dimensional crystalline lattice, MOS2 naturally arranges itself into two-dimensional sheets. A single layer of MOS2 is about 0.65 nanometers thick. 3 atoms. That's the whole thing. What's interesting about this, and this is the part that changes everything, is that when you build a transistor channel out of a material that is intrinsically two-dimensional, the physics of leakage changes in your favor. In a conventional silicon transistor at these scales, one of the main problems is that the gate electrode, which controls whether current flows, cannot wrap fully around the silicon channel. There's geometry working against you, but a 2D material, being essentially flat, gives the gate electrode ideal electrostatic control. You can surround it more completely. The gate can assert dominance over the channel in a way that's geometrically impossible with a bulkier material. Researchers at institutions including MIT, Stanford, and ETH Zurich have demonstrated transistors using MOS2 channels with gate lengths below 1 nanometer, not as theoretical projections but as fabricated measured devices. A 2016 paper published in Science by a team including Ali Javed at Berkeley described a functioning MOS2 transistor with a gate length of 1 nanometer using a carbon nanotube as the gate electrode. The device worked. It was slow by commercial standards, and producing it at scale was not close to feasible, but the principle was demonstrated. Transistors could function below what had been called the silicon limit. The gap between a laboratory demonstration and a chip in your laptop, however, is vast in ways that require some unpacking. Commercial semiconductor manufacturing does not make transistors one at a time. A modern chip might contain 50 billion transistors, all of them fabricated simultaneously through a process called photolithography, in which light is used to etch patterns into a substrate. The equipment required to do this at current scales, extreme ultraviolet lithography machines built primarily by the Dutch company ASML, costs roughly $350 million per unit, stands several stories tall. requires a team of engineers on permanent standby, and generates the extreme ultraviolet light it needs by firing a laser at tin droplets 50,000 times per second to produce a plasma. This is how you make things at 3 or 4 nanometers today. Pushing to 1 nanometer or below means not just new materials, but potentially new tools, new processes, and new physics in the manufacturing environment itself. Which is why the two companies now competing at this frontier are not startups or university labs, but Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company and Intel, the two organizations that have collectively spent more money on semiconductor fabrication capacity than almost any other industrial effort in human history. TSMC, based in Hsinchu, Taiwan, currently manufactures chips for Apple, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, and dozens of other clients whose products define the consumer electronics market. In 2022, TSMC announced its roadmap toward what it calls its N2 process node, nominally 2 nanometers, though the actual transistor gate lengths and the physical measurements that give a node its number have become decoupled over the decades through changes in what gets measured and how. TSMC's N2 uses a new transistor architecture called nanosheet, sometimes called gate-all-around, in which the gate electrode wraps entirely around the conducting channel, a structure that provides the kind of electrostatic control that researchers found beneficial in 2D materials, now realized in a mature silicon-compatible process. Nanosheet GA. A transistors represent the first fundamental change in transistor architecture since the introduction of FinFETs in commercial production around 2011. But TSMC is not stopping at N2. In research disclosures and roadmap presentations to investors and partners, TSMC has indicated development of what it calls its A16 process, A for angstrom, since a nanometer is 10 angstroms, meaning A16 is equivalent to 1.6 nanometers, targeted for production in 2026. The A16 node incorporates not only next-generation nanosheet transistors, but also what TSMC calls backside power delivery. Backside power delivery is one of those architectural innovations that sounds modest until you understand what it replaces. In every chip made today, the transistors sit on one side of the silicon wafer, and the wiring that carries power to them, along with the wiring that carries data signals, is stacked on top, in layers above the transistors. This creates a competition for routing space. Power wires and signal wires are sharing the same stack, which means both are more congested than either would be if they had the layer to themselves. Congestion means higher resistance. Higher resistance means heat and slower signal propagation. Backside power delivery moves the power distribution network to the other side of the silicon wafer entirely, behind the transistors, beneath them, in its own dedicated layer of wiring that doesn't interfere with signal routing at all. The transistors sit between two separate networks. Data above, power below. The result is that signal routing becomes denser and faster, and power delivery becomes more efficient and uniform. Intel has developed its own version of this architecture, which it calls Power Via, and published test results in 2023 demonstrating measurable improvements in both power efficiency and performance on the same transistor design. TSMC's A16 will integrate this approach at production scale. Intel, for its part, has had a complicated decade. The company that essentially invented the commercial microprocessor that drove Moore's Law for 30 years with relentless internal execution fell behind TSMC in leading-edge manufacturing capacity around 2018 and spent several years attempting to close a gap that kept widening. New leadership under Pat Gelsinger, who returned to Intel as CEO in 2021, launched an aggressive rebuilding program under the banner Intel Foundry Services, a commitment to not only regaining leading-edge manufacturing capability, but also opening Intel's fabs to external customers, directly competing with TSMC for the first time in Intel's history. Intel's current advanced node, which it calls Intel 3, its naming convention having diverged entirely from the nanometer terminology used by TSMC and Samsung, entered production in 2023. Intel 18A, its next major node, is scheduled for production qualification in 2024 and 2025, and incorporates both gate-all-around transistors using what Intel calls ribbon FET and its own backside power delivery implementation in Power Via. Independent analysis from firms including SemiAnalysis has suggested that Intel 18A, if it achieves its targets, would be competitive with or superior to TSMC's N2 in transistor density and performance. Backside power delivery moves the power distribution network to the other side of the silicon wafer entirely, behind the transistors, beneath them, in its own dedicated layer of wiring that doesn't interfere with signal routing at all. The transistors sit between two separate networks. Data above, power below. The result is that signal routing becomes denser and faster, and power delivery becomes more efficient and uniform. Intel has developed its own version of this architecture, which it calls Power Via, and published test results in 2023 demonstrating measurable improvements in both power efficiency and performance on the same transistor design. TSMC's A16 will integrate this approach at production scale. Intel, for its part, has had a complicated decade. The company that essentially invented the commercial microprocessor that drove Moore's Law for 30 years with relentless internal execution fell behind TSMC in leading-edge manufacturing capacity around 2018 and spent several years attempting to close a gap that kept widening. New leadership under Pat Gelsinger, who returned to Intel as CEO in 2021, launched an aggressive rebuilding program under the banner Intel Foundry Services, a commitment to not only regaining leading-edge manufacturing capability, but also opening Intel's fabs to external customers, directly competing with TSMC for the first time in Intel's history. Intel's current advanced node, which it calls Intel 3, its naming convention having diverged entirely from the nanometer terminology used by TSMC and Samsung, entered production in 2023. Intel 18A, its next major node, is scheduled for production qualification in 2024 and 2025, and incorporates both gate-all-around transistors using what Intel calls ribbon FET and its own backside power delivery implementation in Power Via. Independent analysis from firms including SemiAnalysis has suggested that Intel 18A, if it achieves its targets, would be competitive with or superior to TSMC's N2 in transistor density and performance. The question hanging over all of this is one that the semiconductor industry discusses carefully but obliquely, because the answer has geopolitical weight that sits uneasily beside engineering conversations. Taiwan's position in global chip manufacturing is not simply a market outcome. It is a fact about where the world's most advanced fabrication capacity physically exists and where it does not. TSMC's dominance at the leading edge has made Taiwan a node in the global technology supply chain with no obvious substitute, a situation that governments from the United States to Japan to the European Union have spent the last several years trying to alter through subsidies, diplomatic pressure, and the construction of entirely new fabs in locations that would have seemed implausible a decade ago. TSMC broke ground on a fabrication facility in Arizona in 2021. The first phase, making chips at TSMC's 4-nanometer process, was delayed but has moved forward. A second phase, targeting more advanced nodes including N2, is planned but has faced challenges with construction timelines, labor costs, and the difficulty of transplanting a manufacturing culture that TSMC's engineers describe, without exaggeration, as among the most demanding in any industry. Intel is building new fabs in Ohio and Germany. Samsung is expanding its presence in Texas. The geography of advanced chip manufacturing is being redrawn, though the redrawn version will take years to materialize and will still, for some time, trail the capabilities available in Taiwan. All of this, the new materials, the new architectures, the new geographies, converges on a question that the industry tends to frame in engineering terms, but that is really a question about something larger. The conventional narrative about Moore's Law has always been that it will end, that transistors will stop shrinking, that physics will impose a hard limit, and the exponential improvement in computing that has structured the last 60 years of technological history will plateau, and we will have to find other ways to make progress. Different chip architectures, new programming paradigms, quantum computing, neuromorphic hardware, or simply the acceptance that we are in a period of incremental refinement rather than transformative leaps. What the emergence of two-dimensional materials and the pivot to entirely new transistor geometries suggests is that the nature of the limit is different from what was assumed. The limit was never physics as such. It was physics as expressed through one particular material, silicon, configured in one particular architecture, the bulk planar transistor. Every time that specific configuration approached its ceiling, engineers found that the ceiling belonged to the configuration, not to physics itself. The transition to FinFETs extended the roadmap by years. The transition to gate-all-around extends it further. The incorporation of 2D channel materials may extend it further still. Researchers at institutions including MIT's Research Laboratory of Electronics have published work on heterogeneous integration, the combination of different materials in the same transistor architecture, using 2D materials for the active channel while retaining silicon or other conventional materials for the substrate and interconnects. The approach acknowledges that MOS2 and its relatives are extraordinary channel materials, but difficult to synthesize at wafer scale with the uniformity that commercial manufacturing demands. The practical pathway to 1 nanometer chips likely involves not a wholesale replacement of silicon, but a careful introduction of new materials at specific, targeted points in the device where their properties are most advantageous. IBM demonstrated a chip architecture in 2021 using 2 nanometer process technology with nanosheet transistors that fit 50 billion transistors into a fingernail-sized chip. The demonstration was a research vehicle rather than a product, but it illustrated that the densities being discussed on roadmaps and in research papers are achievable in hardware that you can hold in your hand. TSMC and Samsung have since moved nanosheet architectures into or near production. The research is materializing. There is something worth pausing on here. Not a grand conclusion, but a specific observation about how this kind of progress actually works. The popular account of technological breakthroughs tends to focus on moments of insight, the lone researcher who sees something others missed, the paper that changes everything overnight. The history of semiconductor scaling is structured differently. It advances through an enormous, distributed, collaborative effort in which materials scientists, process engineers, equipment manufacturers, software developers, and tool suppliers all work on adjacent problems simultaneously, often without full visibility into what the others are doing. TSMC's process engineers know their process in extraordinary detail, but are not necessarily reading the latest MOS2 synthesis papers. The academic researchers producing those papers are not necessarily aware of the specific integration constraints that would make their materials usable in a production environment. What bridges these worlds is, in part, a set of road mapping exercises. The International Roadmap for Devices and Systems, successor to the earlier ITRS roadmap, in which researchers, manufacturers, and equipment makers collectively project where they need to be and what problems need to be solved to get there. The roadmap does not tell anyone how to solve the problems. It tells the ecosystem which problems are the ones worth solving. The 1 nanometer milestone, when it is reached in production, and the current trajectory of both TSMC and Intel suggests that it will be reached somewhere in the late 2020s, perhaps branded as an Angstrom-class node, will be announced in a press release and accompanied by benchmark numbers and competitive comparisons. The announcement will be treated as a product story. It will be simultaneously the outcome of roughly 15 years of coordinated scientific and engineering effort across materials science, device physics, process chemistry, equipment design, and manufacturing logistics. The chips that come after, the chips at 0.5 nanometers or at whatever node follows the Angstrom era, are already being worked on. The problems specific to those nodes are already being identified and assigned. The materials that will enable them are already, somewhere, being synthesized in a laboratory, probably by a graduate student who doesn't yet know that what they're making will end up in a device that 2 billion people will use. That's not a comfortable or convenient narrative. It doesn't have a single protagonist or a clear turning point, but it is, as best as the evidence suggests, how the physics of the very small keeps yielding to the patience of the very determined. Not because the wall doesn't exist, but because every wall, looked at closely enough, turns out to have a door.